अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
वालेकुम अस्सलाम। बात कैसे हैं आप?
अल्लाह का शुक्र है। थोड़े से कैमरे को ना अपना लेफ्ट पे करें, थोड़ा सा। वाह, सही हो गया। तौसीफ साहब भी आ गए। आप स्क्रीन शेयर करके देखें, अपनी हो रही है?
जी मैं वही कर रहा हूँ। हाँ।
फर्स्ट क्लास।
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
वालेकुम सलाम।
पिक्चर आ गई मेरी?
सर अभी नहीं आ रही।
क्यों नहीं आ रही?
सर पता नहीं सर, लगता है कॉन्ट्रैक्ट मिल गया सर, इस वजह से आप चुप गए।
लग रहा है। ये कैसे हो गया सर? कहाँ गई मेरी वीडियो?
वीडियो नहीं आ रही सर आपकी।
सर आपने वो फिजिकल कैमरा देखें, वो ऑन है? उसका भी बटन होगा।
कैमरा तो ऑन है सर।
ये आपका अपना लैपटॉप है?
जी जी।
अच्छा, तो और तो कोई तरीका समझ में नहीं आ
अभी
रहा।
मैंने कैमरा ऑन किया था, वैसे भी वो भी ऑन हो रहा था।
हम्म। सर एग्जिट करके वापस आए। मैं रात को सोया हुआ नहीं हूँ सही से, और सुबह 5 बजे उठ के मुझे बेटी को छोड़ने जाना होता है। और बिल्कुल जो ना मैं कहता यार आज ये है, इसके बाद थोड़ा सा गैप है, उसके बाद फिर वो हमारी पॉडकास्ट है? अम्मार मलिक दोनों दो फोन से आ रहे हैं, फोन से आ रहे हो? इसको स्टॉप करते हैं। आज एक साहब यूके से भी होपफुली आएंगे हमारे पास, वो मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ डिफेंस में काम करते हैं। और उनसे मैं और आप ना सेपरेटली मिलेंगे बाद में। ओह यस, देख सर, ये पुरानी टेक्निक है।
ये ये सबसे आसान टेक्निक है, रीबूट।
हाँ,
दुनिया की
एग्जिट।
सबसे आसान टेक्निक यही है।
हाँ, एग्जिट करो, वापस आ जाओ।
बस। मैं तो एसी चला लूँ सर, बड़ी गर्मी हो रही है।
चलाएं चलाएं। ओके जी, सो हम जो है वो लाइव भी जाएंगे। आ, और क्योंकि हमें वैसे तो 122 लोगों ने जो है वो इवेंट को एक्सेप्ट किया हुआ है। इंजीनियर फैसल साहब आ गए हैं कोई?
कितने लोग आए अब तक?
जस्ट वन मोर पर्सन। हमारे इसको अभी ना प्रेजेंटेशन बंद कर दें। Okay, so we are only a minute from our live session, so I'll just start the live streaming as well. Dr. Wakar is joining in from SDPI, and Faisal is joining. I don't know from here he's joining. Dr. Saab, Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Wakar.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
Walaikum salam.
वालेकुम अस्सलाम।
Shaji. So let me just quickly go live. Okay, ji. We are going live now. Okay, so good morning from Toronto. All these great people who are going to join us. We will share information, knowledge about two very important topics, somewhat interconnected as well, which is net zero and circular economy. We are expecting more people to join in live here as well on Zoom, but at this point in time, we have Tausif Farooqi Saab joining in from Pakistan. Tausif Saab served at NAPRA as chairman NAPRA. And we have Amar Malik joining in from Netherlands, who's based in Saudi Arabia. He has interest and expertise in the area of circular economy. And then, of course, my dear friend, who I learned from a lot, Dr. Waqar Ahmed, joining in from Islamabad. Dr. Saab is the Joint Executive Director at STPI. We'll go around the table and would quickly get some introduction from the people who are joining us here on Zoom. We had about 20 odd people accepting the invite. Hopefully, a few people will join in. And as we go along, we'll try to finish this session in 60 minutes, an hour. And the objective of this session is to learn what's happening in these two areas in different countries from where people will be joining us. And what are some of the things as a community we could do to improve upon what is happening, what the initiatives are here. So the process will be that we have two very small presentations, one from Tausif Saab and the other one from Omar. And very briefly, we're going to touch upon the understanding and what's happening right now in those spaces. And then we'll open this session up for comments, Q&A, and towards the end, we would like to pick your brain, all the participants' brain, as to where do we go from here. We have some ideas which we're going to share in during the conversation with you. So if we quickly go around the table and have literally an elevator pitch-like introduction from all the participants that are here. And then we will go to Tausif Saab and to Amar for their presentation and little introduction as well. So Dr. Saab, Dr. Waqar, if you could very quickly introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. This is Waqar Ahmed. I'm associate with the Sustainable Development Policy Institute, and of course has been working very closely with Tausif Saab's former institution, NEPRA, with the Federal Ministries of Energy, and of course currently working very closely with the Ministry of Climate Change towards their preparedness for the COP meeting in the UAE. So happy to be here, Ahmad Saab.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saab. It's always a pleasure to see you and to listen to you and to learn from you as well. Next, I would actually like to invite Muhammad Ahsan joining us from the UK.
Assalamu alaikum and hello everybody. Thank you so much, sir, for the invite. And my background is in control systems and automation. And when we come to net zero or circular economy or even their intersection, automation or any of the control systems, industrial control systems are of paramount importance. Recently in the main, I have received an MPhil from University of Cambridge on Sustainable Development. So ready for contributing and looking forward to the session.
Thank you very much. Next, I would request Shanjini Mehta for her quick introduction. Shanjini, I mean, I know Shanjini for quite some time now. Glad to see you, Shanjini. Can you please? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hello, Hamachi. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this invite. I What should I say about myself? I basically have a background in sustainable infrastructure, looking at climate change, and mostly on the adaptation side. But currently, I'm working on some projects in Vancouver Island on climate mitigation for buildings and fleet, like public sector climate mitigation.
Right.
Thank you.
And her past institution was Asian Development Bank, so you can imagine the level of work she had been doing. She has been very humble. So thank you, Shanjini,
Thank you.
for that. Next, I would request Abdullah Alutabai. I hope I am not butchering your name. If I do, I'm really sorry for that.
Yes. Yeah, my name is Abdullah Lutaibi. I'm joining from Riyadh. Good morning, good evening, everyone. I'm interested to learn from you guys about this topic. I have no background, actually. I work as a business analyst, and I am interested to hear from you guys and learn about the topic.
Thank you, Abdullah.
Thanks.
Alia Heather, if you may quickly introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Alia Heather. I'm Executive Director at Abacus Consulting. And of late, we have understood the significance of sustainability and all that it represents and the critical nature of it for our consultant, for our clients. So therefore, we are very actively moving into that space. And that's why I'm here to listen to you guys.
Thank you. And you're based in Pakistan? Okay.
I'm based in Pakistan, in Lahore.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next, I would request, who else is there? Jordan Hitchcock, if you may introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Jordan. I'm based in Portland, Oregon. I found this webinar on LinkedIn, and I'm just curious to learn more about what you're doing.
All right, thank you. Next would be Katrina Paloka.
Hello,
Hi.
I'm Katerina. I am an environmental engineer. I will graduate next month, December. And I'm very excited for this event because I'm interested in circular economy and sustainability. So I can't wait to start.
Okay, where are you joining you from, Katrina?
I'm from Greece.
All right, please, thank you. Hamad Altaf, if you may. Yeah.
Hello, sir. My name is Hamad Altaf, and I am working in NPO Pakistan. Currently, I am in Vietnam for 2 weeks training, and my core field is energy management. So this topic seems very relevant to my field, and want to learn something and want to implement and to provide additional services to my clients. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It must be late evening in Vietnam at this point.
Yeah, it is almost 11.
Okay. No, that shows the commitment. So thank you very much. I think I've covered everyone in the session live here. So thank you very much for joining in, everyone. I'm very excited about the session because I'm going to learn a lot from our learned speakers and from you all as well, because we all, I mean, the best process is to exchange knowledge, basically. So I would actually hand it over to our two learned honorable speakers, Tausif Saab and Amar, to take the whole process forward.
Thank you, Hamad. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes.
Okay, so allow me to just present my screen so we can get started. Please confirm if you can see the screen as well.
Yes,
All
we
right.
can.
Yes, we can.
So thanks, thanks everyone, and a pleasure to be speaking on this important subject of circular economy. We will first start looking at the problem in hand. Why do we need a circular economic model? What's driving the adoption of something called circular economy? And the best place to start is to look at the interplay between something called biosphere and technosphere. Now, what is biosphere? Biosphere is our living environment. It is broken down into three broad elements of nature. One is, the first one is called hydrosphere. These are our oceans, our seas, our rivers, and the life under the ocean, basically our fish, flora and fauna, as well as the resources under the seabed. The second element would be the air we breathe, known as atmosphere, and the third one being lithosphere, or as we normally call geosphere. Now, this geosphere, or the Earth, is in turn divided into two layers. First, what is above the Earth, which is all the plants and organisms, and then what is below the Earth, which is our metal ores and minerals. They combine to form this geosphere. Now, at some point in the recent history, let's say around the start of the industrial age, one of the organisms in this biosphere, namely the humans, started building another layer on top of the biosphere. We call it technosphere. Technosphere is nothing but just our infrastructure that we use to build our cities. These are our buildings, our bridges, our transportation network. And what happened is that as the products used in the technosphere started aging and reached the end of their lives, we started disposing them off by one of these two channels. We either bury them in the land, becoming landfills, or we burn them, the incineration process. This entire chain of deriving resources from biosphere and building it up in technosphere and then disposing it through landfills and incineration becomes what we call the linear economic model of take, make, and waste. And that created problems. I would say dual problems. So first, we are depleting the resources from the biosphere, and then the irresponsible way with which we dispose it off at the end of the useful life of the product, that creates environmental hazards. Now, specifically talking about the depletion of natural resources, this chart is very interesting. So on the left-hand side, you see all the critical metals or the raw materials that we use to build our products in technosphere, right? And with each metal, you see either a white dot or a black dot. So the white dot is our current production level. It represents the current state. The black dot represents the increased production that we need to achieve to transition to the net zero scenario. Yeah. So white dot is our current, black dot is what we need to get to our net zero scenario. Now let's focus on one of the elements. Let's say lithium, because that is, if you see the gap between the white and the black dot is big. So our current production levels are close to 200%. This is the production growth percentage year on year. So that is around 200%. To transition to a net zero scenario, we need to increase the production by more than 700%. So you see the problem with it. Can we actually increase that production? And if we increase the production, will we run out of lithium? So the answer to that question, whether we'll run out of lithium, is yes. And how soon? So the International Energy Agency did an estimate. They said under the current energy transition which is happening, let's take one of those components, electric vehicles, EVs. If we consume, if we produce all the EVs that we need for the net zero, we will exhaust our lithium supply by 2030. Let's say within the next 7 years, lithium will be gone, nothing left out of the Earth's crust. So you can appreciate what's happening over here. To tackle one problem, to introduce the net zero, to tackle the global warming, we are actually exaggerating another issue. To solve one problem, we created another, and which is the depletion of resources. And this refers back to what you were saying, Hamad, at the beginning, that that's the reason we need an integrated strategy towards environmental sustainability. We all have the net zero strategies, everybody have their targets, but we need to have a material strategy as well. And we need to bring the material and the net zero strategy together in one cohesive strategy to achieve that equilibrium. A few other drivers to look at. Now, I explained the linear economic model. The linear economic model is by design wasteful. It is designed so that it creates waste. A few years back, Ellen MacArthur Foundation and McKinsey, they conducted a survey in the European Union bloc on the consumption pattern, and they came up with very interesting observations. Very simple observations, like regarding our daily use products. So let's say they arrive at a conclusion that an average vehicle, let's say a car that they use over here, it remains idle 92% of the time. So you purchase a car and it is not used 92% of the time. Take office space. The office space remains around 35 to 50% of the office space remains idle even during the working hours in the weekdays. Yeah. So the linear model is built to be wasteful by design. And then we have price risk. I mean, we are coming down from a very high inflation period, and we still have. We hope that the prices are stabilizing. But to take a specific example, last year when this Ukraine-Russia conflict started, we saw the uptick in the prices of wheat and fertilizer. Within the course of 2 to 3 months, the prices spiked by more than 50%. Yeah, so that's another thing which we get from a linear economic model. Then we have supply chain risks. Regulatory trends are coming up, and then the urbanization. Urbanization basically talks to the building of, the structure that we are erecting in technosphere. Now, all these issues are coming up with the linear economic model. And if, let's say, circular economy is the answer, so do we have a framework where we can use that to deploy this circular economic model on a practical footing? The answer is yes. So the framework is called, it's called the Butterfly Model by Ellen MacArthur Foundation in the UK. It's a very comprehensive and a complicated model, but we have filtered it down to these 3 core principles. So allow me to just take you through this. So what we are dealing with over here is the products which have reached the end of their useful lives. We are concentrating on the waste, the products which have reached end of their lives. So that at the first step, we basically collect and segregate those products. We segregate our biological waste from our plastics, from our metals, from our glass. So all these are segregated. And once we have these segregated, then we apply these principles one by one. So the first principle, we have to conserve our capital, our natural capital. Yeah. So if you think about our biological waste, let's say you eat a banana and you throw away the peel. So under the circular economy, there is no such thing as waste. Waste is a resource. We collect all that biological waste, and we can use it to produce some very beneficial biochemicals, extract biogas from it. And once whatever is left out of after this chemicals and biogas, we have to return it back to the earth, where the microbial communities basically break it down. And that's how we basically restore our natural capital. That's how we close the loop in a circular economic model. Now, the second principle, probably the most important principle, we have to keep our products at the highest utility level at all times. It's very critical. And how do we do that? We follow this hierarchy of 4 steps. So the first priority goes to prolonging the useful life of our products. So let's say if I have I'm presenting this session through a laptop. I have purchased this laptop and I intend to use this for next 3 years. So once those 3 years are over, once the product reaches its end of its life, I first have to see if I can prolong the use, if I can use it for 1 to 2 more years. If that is not feasible, then you go to the next step, which is reuse and redistribute to a used market, through a used market. If that is not feasible, then you send the product back to OEM, which is the original equipment manufacturer, and they basically refurbish the product and bring it back to the market for the users. And if that is also not feasible, then you go to the 4th level, which is the recycle. And recycle is nothing but basically stripping a product for its part and manufacturing some other products. Yeah. So we use this hierarchy to basically keep the products at the highest utility level during their useful life and after their useful life. So 3rd principle says that, okay, the way we design our products, it needs to change. We need to design our products in a way that they do not leave a harmful footprint in the environment. Yeah, so we have to design out these negative externalities. So this is a little bit about the framework. It's a very practical framework. For deployment, it's a very comprehensive, detailed framework. If any of the participants are interested in going into the details of any of these principles, you can reach out to me and we can have a one-to-one discussion. At the end, before I leave it before we transition to the net zero part, these are some of the verticals which have the biggest opportunities for circularity: packaging, textiles, automobiles, renewable energy, and food. Food is very important over here. Right now, I mentioned a report previously about EU consumption pattern by McKinsey. So in that report, there was a very important conclusion about the food. In Europe, 31% of the food get wasted in the value chain. 1/3 of the food actually doesn't reach the consumers. Imagine the carbon footprint that we can reduce if we can conserve that food in the value chain. Yeah, and if we apply circularity models to these verticals, we achieve, we reduce our negative outcomes, which is the waste, pollution, climate change, and with the climate change, we talk about the net zero. Yeah, so these circularity models would also help us achieve some of the sustainable development goals, which you see at the bottom, SDGs. These are promulgated by UN, United Nations. So in our future sessions, and I know, Hamad, we will talk about it at the end about, what are the steps moving forward. We will basically, what we will do is we will zoom into all of these verticals one by one, and that could be a very important learning experience to look at the business opportunities that exist within these spaces. Yeah, so with that, I hand it over to you, Hamad. I think we need to transition to our next session, next topic.
Thank you, Amar. Honestly, eye-opening for me, and I'm sure for some other participants as well. It is a matter of presenting it to the business and to bring them on board as well to see how they can benefit from this whole initiative. So over to you, Tausif Saab, for your little session on net zero.
Thank you very much, Hamad and Ammar. Ammar, if you don't mind, can you put up the slides? Generally, I do extempore, but today I was extremely busy the whole day. I didn't get even a chance to look at what I prepared. So I need your help if you can kindly put it up and do the honors for me.
Sure. So hope you can see the screen.
Yep. Can you go back one screen, please?
Sure.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you very much, Hamad, for hosting today's session, and Ammar for your very insightful presentation. It is a great learning experience for all of us. At the very onset, I would like to say one thing, that I'm no expert of net zero. I'm probably as novice as all of you are. All my life, I have always been one of the biggest polluters. But I think now I have realized that it's time that I put my utmost focus on green energy, because a lot of this technology which is available now was not even available before. And at that time, when I was developing the largest power plants in Pakistan or in UAE, the idea was to serve the people with the electricity. But now I think what the added advantage of this modern technology like green energy is to serve exactly achieve the same goal, but with green energy actually. So what is net zero? We hear about this buzzword a lot. Most of my friends who have joined us today, I'm quite sure they are aware of it. So it's more of a balancing act basically. So before I actually delve into net zero, I would like to walk you through the very mindset that basically gives rise, or where the net zero stems from actually. So it is basically, in my opinion, the green leadership. What you do is basically, when you prioritize the environment and green energy, like what I did when I started my career as chairman NAPRA about 4 years back, my whole focus was on green energy. The idea was that all those sins that I've done all my life, I need to neutralize that, like the net zero, whereby you actually do the balancing act and neutralize or offset the greenhouse gases by putting the green energy as much as possible. So how do you do that? How do you achieve the green energy leadership? Basically, you avoid carbon-based fuels and inefficient working as much as possible. Basically, if you look at Ammar's presentation, that was more on the input side. The circularity is basically giving you or educating you on managing your input side. The net zero, on the other hand, is basically managing your output, your emissions, and your all the inefficiencies, which is actually giving rise to that. So green energy requires continuous improvement on green initiatives, from plantation to green energy, and there are so many other things you can do. You have to focus on eco-friendly mindset, and you have to focus on its implementation. And how do you practice that? Like I did in NAPRA, I took 5 initiatives. One was called Power with Prosperity, whereby I engage all my licensees who are 300 plus to actually, and first time in the history, I asked them this question: what exactly are you doing on CSR front? So I initiated this Power with Prosperity initiative, and the results in 3 years are absolutely staggering. And the second initiative I took was on HSE side. I called it Power with Safety. And the third one was called Power with Security, whereby for the entire Pakistan, all these moving objects, our turbines and all that, we brought cyber security regulations. And the fourth one being industry and academia linkages, called Power with Unity, whereby I tried to bring, being the regulator, my industry with the academia, and we created a portal whereby all our industry was supposed to bring all their problem statements, and our academia and students, they were supposed to give us indigenous and local comparatively very cheap solutions. Last but not the least, our girls are doing a fantastic job. I brought a initiative for them called Power with Equality, trying to give them, as much opportunities in the power sector as much as possible. Because historically in Pakistan, we have 1 to 1.5% of female participation or employment. So I gave a lot of boost to that. Like in NAPRA, 56% of females were hired by me in last 4 years. So all these initiatives are a must for you to have green leadership and promote advocacy and talk about it as much as you can. Next, please. So coming to net zero, as I mentioned, it's a balancing. We can't make carbon-based fuel consumption or fossil fuel-based consumption, at least in the near future. So idea is that we offset the greenhouse gases or whatever the negative carbon dioxide or methane or nitrogen oxide or CFC12, and try to balance it with the green initiatives so that we knock off the negative impact of that. So what are the drivers of net zero? Like all the climate tipping points. The global warming itself is a huge tipping point. The environmental impact, the greenhouse gases, and all these elements that we are seeing, which is actually giving us the climate change impact. And in Pakistan, we are facing the brunt of it because we are the 5th most vulnerable country in the world declared, on climate front. And we have experienced a lot of, floods and heavy rains and blah, blah, blah. So all this has to be, controlled. The COP21, which happened in Paris in 2015, the climate change agreement was to reduce the overall temperature to around less than 2 degrees centigrade. And APAR has shown that lately we have actually brought it down to 1.5%. That's what the target is. So local regulations are playing a very important role, as Amar also mentioned. The regulatory now the frameworks are giving it a rise. COP28 is round the corner. You will see a lot of discussions on. So these are few areas that we have to consider when thinking about net zero. Next, please. So I also would like to touch upon two important factors. One is CDM, the Clean Development Mechanism that was introduced back in 1997 when all of us heard this Kyoto Protocol. And the idea was that we combat the climate change, and all these green initiatives were discussed and promoted at that time. But now the latest mantra is SDM, the Sustainable Development Mechanism. It's basically United Nations Framework Convention of Climate Change, and which is also the one which make these COPs happen. Even COP28, which is starting from 1st December, I believe, it is going to be under the auspices of UNFCCC. And the idea, the main difference between the CDM and now SDM is, then in SDM, the sustainability is the nucleus of the entire planning. So previously, even though the climate change was very important, but now they are talking about engaging the communities. So that's the main difference. So like SDG 7 of United Nations that talks about green and clean energy. So the pivotal point here, as I already mentioned, is basically the engagement of communities around sustainable basis. I was reading a latest study of McKinsey, and they believe in next 10 years, we are going to require about 41 trillion US dollars just to achieve the net zero targets. This is for next 10 years. We all know that for the 2050, the target is to make it zero, on net balance or net zero. So half of it is expected to come directly from the job creation and the business opportunities, some of it Amar has already touched. And the other halves will have to be sponsored by the governments, by multilaterals and all that. But the idea is that no government in the world will be able to play its role alone in promoting the net zero. All of us, every single individual, like we 13 are uh, you know, connected here today. And I'm quite sure in the next one we are going to have, probably we are going to have, much more than this number. So the idea is that we keep on hammering, we keep on repeating the mantra that we have to be very watchful both on circularity as well as net zero. Next one, please. Since I've been part of this vital industry called power sector, my personal involvement on net zero is from the standpoint of view of power sector. Why power sector is so critical? Because it is part of our daily lives. It's an engine for the economy. If all the rest of the sectors are the part of the train, the power sector is the engine of that train. We can't produce a single unit unless we are asked to. Dispatch is there. It's a very high ticket item. Then it's highly cyclic in nature. Like in summer, for example, in Pakistan, it goes as high as 32,000 megawatts. But in winter, it comes down to 8,000, 10,000 megawatts. So 20,000 megawatts load is just for the cooling. And I'm sure the same disparity would be in Europe for the heating probably. We have a fixed cost regime, a variable cost regime, which makes it very peculiar actually. And most importantly, there's a very, very strong political price of power sector. So watching the net zero on the power sector side is absolutely critical, because previously, as I said, all my life, my focus was to produce electricity, bring it to the doorstep of the people, which is helping not only individuals, but also businesses and commercial and all that. But now do exactly the same thing, but with the focus of green energy, so that you don't pollute this world while you are doing this fantastic job. Next one, please. There are so many things we can do. There are many initiatives which are very, very, I think, obvious. But let me very quickly go through that. We can do the RE induction. We can do the offset with green energy. We can use solar power, wind power, hydro, the gas, and then we can work on the plant efficiency improvement sides. There are so many things that needs to be improved, because right now, your output has to be managed. And for that, it is not simply possible that in one go you are going to replace the entire fleet just like that. So the ideal thing is that while you are inducting new green energy, you have to also monitor as well as improve the efficiency of the existing fleet, so that you reduce the GHGs as well as other emissions. You also need to work on the demand side management to reduce the electricity consumption, because the more efficiency you are going to achieve there, the more reduced energy generation would be. There will be less load on the fossil fuel based plants, and you can employ more and more green energy. Again, there are so many green appliances that you can apply. I mean, like in Europe, they have their own standard. Many other countries have their own standards. We are working on Pakistan with NICA to actually come up with the standards to have high efficiency appliances available in the market. Then promote green energy utilization in new areas like heating. In Pakistan, historically, we never used electricity or green energy for heating purposes. This is one area which we are exploring now, so that we not only generate more demand, but also the demand for the green energy. Nuclear energy is not pure green energy, but it is definitely clean energy. So we should promote that instead of fossil fuel based plant, modernize the grid, which is quite obvious to make efficient use of power and reduce the distribution losses. Next one, please. So other major factors that need to be considered or initiated is transition from linear to circular economy that was already discussed. Carbon capture and storage initiatives, that is again a name of the game, because as much as you'll be able to capture the carbon, you'll be able to reduce the emissions actually. Reforestation is another very, very important area that we need to work on side by side, with having employing more green energy. Electric vehicle, I gave electric vehicle regulations in NAPRA. Unfortunately, because we couldn't increase the solar generation, which is now going to be there very soon, we couldn't attract or create traction for the EVs, but I'm quite sure it will happen very soon. Green building standards is again, Nika is working on that. That's an amazing initiative, reducing the basic again the emissions and all that. Then carbon credits, we don't have this market in Pakistan, but this is something which is very, very promising, and it is going to incentivize basically all the plants and all the players to be able to invest more in the green energy. Then again, some countries are using carbon pricing or taxes as an instrument to basically demoralize the carbon usage and all that. So that is again another instrument that we can use. And climate finance to promote energy is very, very critical. This is something, if the liquidity is available, we should focus on that. So this is pretty much from my side. I hope I finished on time. Yes. I've just seen the watch. Yeah. So thank you very much. And I'm available for any questions, please.
Thank you, Tausif Saab, for an in-depth presentation. Now, as an advocacy expert, I would always think, what is the lowest hanging fruit? What is one thing that we could do to kickstart the whole process? And as my advocacy partner in Pakistan for many years, I would actually like to pick Dr. Wakar's brain on where do we start from, Dr. Wakar. Dr. Wakar he doesn't only have focus on Pakistan, but for the whole region. And when we are in the region, then of course, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, all these countries have more or less a similar issue. Dr.
Thank you, Ahmad Saab. And I think this was a very wonderful presentation by Amar Saab and Tausif Saab. I think you have really raised the right sort of question that where do we start from, and somebody who has some or little interface with environmental economics, I would like to believe that these ideas have to really start from the very household level, and I take the point of course, reducing consumption at some level, of course, switching to renewable sources of energy, but of course convincing at a grassroots level, or persuasion at a grassroots level, is never that easy. We have seen this in the case of solid waste management, something that we continue to do, and really working with communities as much as they buy the concept of recycle or compost. It's really not been easy to scale up at a very large level. And I do take the point that educating at a mass scale, of course, requires time. To start with, of course, I think there have to be some communities who have to be sort of showcased as stories of success, just like we have on the business side, on the private sector side, where we frame case studies wherein the businesses come together and commit to sustainability, and therein, of course, we have seen examples here as well as abroad as well, where businesses have shown a sort of economic sense of transitioning towards clean and green tech, something which, of course, the presentation also highlighted. Now, we do understand that some of these concepts, and Tausif Saab took the name of NICA as well, some of these concepts can be actually incorporated through good building control. And yes, we have seen the rise of housing societies or real estate and construction sector, where, of course, such building codes can be at least enforced, which not only make good economic sense, but also from an environmental point of view, they weatherize your home, weatherize your sort of place of business, switch to sort of renewable energy provider, and of course make an environment around the community where, of course, you tend to be sort of encouraging public transportation instead of owning of your own vehicles or investing on infrastructure that promotes individual vehicles, for example. And then, of course, there is an economic incentive to sort of reuse whatever output one could do in the manufacturing side as well going forward. So a massive sort of advocacy would be, of course, required, particularly when dealing with communities as well as smaller businesses, I would say, smaller firms who actually believe that, rightly or wrongly, they believe that adoption of such instruments that promote energy efficiency could be very costly. I think we need to showcase to them that there are alternative solutions which over the longer term reduce your sort of cost over time if one moves towards more sustainable means of energy. If I can say that for countries like Pakistan, if I can talk about, let's say, the near term, this discussion is of immense importance, given that Pakistan is entering into a sector which really has a lot of sort of climate footprint, that's mining. And we have the Strategic Investment Facilitation Council set up, which is there to sort of explore the potential of mining, and without putting in the kind of protocols which the presentation has shown us, going into the mining sector without those protocols, could really be disastrous for communities, disastrous for a country which is facing recurrent floods. Every 11 months, we have a new flood, So this is a sector that we need to be looking out for, because this is being pitched to the GCC economies, this is being pitched to China, and we really need to focus on this. Again, under the advocacy, outreach, policy engagement vertical that we would refine together here. My last point is on the role of think tanks here, and the fact that, of course, the country hasn't got many, but of course, some very good think tanks in the country, in the region, who are working on these areas. And as I always say, that we need to work a lot with the scientist community as well, because we would easily create a hype, but once, of course, that hype is bought by the politicians, by the civil servants, unless we are ready with the solutions community to come in very quickly, that hype sort of dies down. So we need to work, the think tanks would be working on the persuasion part of this, including my own institute, have to be working at the back end very closely with the academia, with the cutting edge scientists who are working on these solutions, which we have heard in the slide deck. So thank you, Ahmad Saab. Over to you.
Thank you very much. And I would like to, if Alia is still with us. Yes, Alia, because you mentioned that you're working with your clients, some of your clients are in the private sector. Can you please also shed some light on the response from private sector on circular economy and net zero? That would really enrich the discussion.
Thank you. Just wanted to say that it's interesting that you're talking about this. Let me give you an example. We have recently completed a project which was carried out by GIZ, the German donor agency. And the objective was to actually prepare the textile sector, the textile sector, which is the backbone of our exports, essentially, to prepare them for the upcoming regulations in the European Union. And as I'm sure all of you would know, that January 1st, 2024, some of the regulations, like, for example, a sustainability reporting directive, I believe, and the Green Deal is already, very much there. So all of them are going to become not voluntary anymore, but rather mandatory. And that would of course be relevant for the entities based in the European Union, but by virtue of the fact that they will be required to ensure that all their supply chain is also compatible, that would entail that all the exporters, such as from Pakistani exporters, will also need to pull up their socks and comply with certain pretty rigorous regulations. And of course, circular economy is a critical part of it. And the larger entities are very much conscious of it, like the Interloops and the Nishats and the Crescents, etc. They're very much conscious of it. But like, the gentleman, all of you mentioned before that as well, that the smaller and medium-sized entities, those are the ones that need to be made aware of, and they need to be more conscious of, and they need to do a lot of work to become compliant in all the sustainability areas, the governance, the HR, and of course the environment. So I think that could be our low-hanging fruit, actually.
That's very, very interesting, Alia. Thank you very much for giving us the insight on that. And so we have something to share towards the end that could actually kind of start the whole process of making people more aware, particularly in the smaller businesses, and the value chain that you said, or the chain that we have, supply chain that we have even for the larger manufacturers, even in textile, is all the smaller vendors who supply various things. So I remember, because when I was in Pakistan, I worked on the corporate compliance piece of initiative, and the major problem was actually coming from smaller vendors, because what's in it for me is the question that they would always ask. So thank you very much. I would actually open the platform for input, for questions. The best thing is to raise your hand, and I'll invite you to speak, so that we keep the decorum, the process in place. Anyone who is interested, please, you can raise your hand. I saw Zishan Ansari turning on his microphone. So Zishan Sahab, would you like to? Mohammed Hassan would like to say. Okay, yes, Hassan, please go ahead.
Thank you so much for the presentation. It was very insightful. Just a background before I ask any questions or I add anything to this. I'm working as an engineering manager for UK Ministry of Defence. And as previously mentioned, my background was more technically control systems and automation. And I think a lot of companies in the UK at the moment, what they are doing is they are having net zero pathways, and they are basically even cost pathways, or even you look at otherwise. But what they are doing is they are using generative AI, because the last 1 year, AI has been quite on the boom. So generative AI for the decision making. And this is one of the things, and I would echo what Alia has mentioned. Like, for example, my background, electrical engineering or anything, we have quite strong standards because of the maturity of the field, or whatever you can say. Even mechanical engineering is the same. But in sustainability, circular economy, net zero, or you use product as a service or anything, you go that way, we do not have a standard. And this is something which is not helping not only the SMEs, but the bigger companies as well. So for example, take a bigger corporation which is the same, which have a setup in Canada, in US, in UK, and in India, Pakistan. So they might, most of the things they are manufacturing are in India and Pakistan. Part of the reason is because there are less people to ask them there due to lack of regulations. So this is one of my points. And secondly, I think what the panel thinks, or what we collectively think, how technology can integrate with this one and how it can reform and help us to achieve net zero targets, keeping in view that we don't want the cost to go overhead.
Right. So thank you, Asan, for your suggestion, and I'm sure AI is going to take over our lives if it has not already done so. And as we implement AI in our decision-making process, a lot of companies in the West are already doing it. Any comments on Asan's input? Yes, Umar.
So yeah, as a very important point about the use of AI and the technology in general. So we need to see in terms of, whenever you face a new problem, the first thing to do is to basically define the problem and see the extent of the problem. So in that sense, what we need is to first measure our carbon footprints and measure our rate at which we are reusing our products. Yeah, so that measurement is very important. And in that sense, I think the IoTs and the IIoTs, the Industrial Internet of Things, those can help a lot in basically attaching those sensors to our chimneys, to our, even at the consumer level. I mean, industry is definitely using it, is heading to the direction of using the technologies, the IIoTs and the automation to grab their carbon footprint, but the consumers as well. I mean, why can't we do it at the vehicles? The transport sector pollutes a lot. So why can't we just do it at the individual vehicles and let people know this is the carbon footprint you are generating by burning through the internal combustion engines? So measurement, I definitely see that's the first wave. The measuring the carbon footprint is upon us. And there, the technology definitely has a role to play.
Sure. Any more input, suggestions to this conversation?
Yeah, I would like to just
sure.
Respond to what Alia said. I think that makes a perfect sense because the idea is to do the whole hand holding of those who cannot probably engage the top-notch companies like McKinsey's and all that. There are so many, the SMEs which are there. We are probably going to, launch a campaign and advocacy, as Waqar Saab also mentioned, and engage them with whatever little contribution we can make so as to make a difference for those who probably need our help the most. And as Amar said, those AI tools can definitely help you measure your, let's say, blood pressure, but it can't make you fix your blood pressure. If it tells you that your blood pressure is 160/90, you have to take some corrective measures to be able to fix it and bring it back to whatever, 120/70. So that's where our input is vital. And where what Alia mentioned, I think for me personally, the takeaway, because Alia has her hand, on the very pulse of a large segment of the society, and she is very close to them. So I think that's an area that we must explore to help out, because the idea is not here to sell our services, but the idea from this today's discussion is to help out in basically promoting green energy and helping those who really need our help.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Tausif. Just to make a point. I thank you. That'll be great. I think I would love to get in touch with you. By the way, hi. How are you, Tausif? I hope you're doing great. I was just saying that at this stage, maybe where, the stage that our industry is at this point in time in Pakistan, perhaps it's a good idea that all this necessity to change and transform themselves into a greener, industry is being driven by the buyer, essentially, and that's okay to start with. I understand that right now it'll be difficult to actually convince them that this is necessary. It's in the long run, they will actually be gaining quite a bit from the the measures that they take right now. But it's going to be a slightly more time consuming process. But once that's done, hopefully they will be more convinced. But at this stage, the compliance may be driven by the buyer, and I think we should still take it and run with it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Most of the time, it is not the positive motivation that makes us do something. Sometimes it is the negative motivation,
Exactly.
So here, the compliance is a must, because that is going to seriously hamper their businesses. Because if European Union is going to put this requirement, they are not going to budge on this. They have to do the needful to be able to sell their products. So I think, and I'm very grateful for to all these regulatory embargoes, or whatever you want to call it, because that is really making the action, and quick action, actually. That's what we need.
So a little thoughts here, as somebody who is not an expert on this subject, but maybe a little bit of experience and expertise in the advocacy piece of it, is that when we start talking about it in a more public forums, things start happening. And in my whole career in the policy advocacy space, this is what I've seen. And so mix of the communities, which is like maybe smaller communities, SMEs, relatively larger companies that are almost forced to do things, would be something that motivators, I would say, not advocates, but the motivators like you all sitting in your own countries could actually begin the whole process with. And as a Pakistani or as a South Asian, I know all of South Asian companies that are big in exporting textiles have seen it, have seen labor compliance issues and child labor issues and all that. So it's something which is not new. It's coming, and more will come. So what we have here today towards the end of the session is that we are working on a little self analysis tool, which will help any company, any organization to do a little bit of mapping of how much they are contributing towards non-compliance, I would say, towards polluting the environment or in this whole process. So this is what we are doing at the moment. It's work in process right now, but what we are looking for is, we had about 13 people in this session today here, and there were other people on Zoom Live as well. If we build a little community, little community of 10 to 15 people, all those who are here, it's almost like an international organization when we have people from Saudi Arabia, from Greece as well, and from Canada as well. This small group shares these ideas, and once this little tool is ready, if we come back to you for review, for your insights to that tool, and then maybe you take this tool and share it with the audience that you already have, and ask them to map their own footprint, which could be towards net zero or the bigger concept of circular economy. That would really be great, and that probably is going to be the starting point in helping them understand, as Tosi Saab rightly said, we had always been polluting the environment, and now we we should really be looking at reversing this whole process. So this is little request that we have for the audience today. And if it is not too cumbersome, please wait for the next meeting that we would like to have with you once we have more, once we have advanced into this whole process of creating that tool. So this is little request from our side. Yes, Tausif.
I would like to ask our friend Abdullah Lutaibi from Riyadh. I mean, what is your impression about today's discussion that we have, and do you have any comments?
Yes, of course. Thanks for this presentation. I really benefit from this insightful discussion. However, I'm not expert in this subject, but I believe that the vital matter here is education, and it starts from the school. Because here in Saudi Arabia, I never actually learned from teachers at the school to manage waste, for example. But from religious perspective, yes, I know preventing waste is very is suggested by Islam in my religion, and I prevent waste. However, I think education play a very critical role here in solutioning. And I thank you all for this discussion, and I am also I look forward, for upcoming discussion in this subject, and I will explore more also about this. Thank you all.
Thank you, Abdullah. All right, so next very quick things that we would like to do is that we have all the email addresses of people who registered for the event. We're going to share this this video, probably a video or maybe a little brief of what we discussed, maybe just like one page or something. And we would request your support in reaching out to more audience for the next session. And let's keep this discussion going. We would like to bring in more experts and voices from other countries as well, so that it becomes not only very Pakistan-centric project. I mean, of course, a lot of us are from Pakistan, but because it's a global initiative, it should remain as a global initiative. So this is little thing for me. Any last comments, Amar or Tausif, and then we'll close the session.
Definitely, Ahmad, thanks a lot for hosting this. It's a pleasure. I am a big advocate of the circularity and the net zero, and it's really lovely to just speak on that subject. And I can go on for hours and hours without stopping. So thanks for giving the platform, and I hope that we can continue that in the future as well.
Thank you.
I'm particularly thankful to you, Hamad, because you handpicked me from Pakistan and you handpicked Ammar from Netherlands, and you are the prime mover of this initiative, because you thought that we too make a great team, of course, under your commandship. And today is our first such session, but I believe that we are going to continue with that. And we got fantastic, very serious, listeners as well as participants. With their help, I'm quite sure we are going to launch it as a campaign, so that we run it as a marathon and do some positive contribution for as many as we can. So any one of you, if you would like to, discuss anything with us, engage us for anything, any ideas or whatever, we are always available. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your kind words, Tausif Saab. I think whatever we can do for what I call Mother Earth, I think this is the future. And instead of ruining the future, we should really consider ways whereby we could actually improve the lives of our next generation. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining in. Those who are joining in late from the other part of the world, thank you for your time and consideration. And let's stay in touch. Thank you. Bye for now.